Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Kendall again. Hey, we're going to go over something that's absolutely amazing. Now, we're going to have to start out immediately on the whiteboard. Let me hurry and pull that up real quick because we need to reference back to maybe some of the videos you've seen, maybe you haven't, but let's pull this up real quick. Let me pull up my iPad. This is always takes me just a moment. Let's see, unable to connect. Let me try that again. Sometimes the Wi-Fi signal doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Let me try this. Here we go. And connecting, all right, I think we're good. Can you see that now? All right, awesome. So we've had, maybe you've seen some of the videos, maybe you haven't. If you haven't, you deserve to, you better find them. Whoever got you this one, tell them, hey, I need more information. So we've talked about things as far as the cash flow quadrant, where to make your money, all right? We've talked about how to save money on taxes. We've talked about retirement plans. We've talked about, self-directed retirement plans and raising capital to do deals. Well, what if you're like, well, okay, none of that applies to me, Kendall. I don't know how to do this stuff. Well, number one, you're not being creative enough, and you got to start thinking outside the box because everybody can make this work, okay? You're just not thinking hard enough. But number two, let me show you something that this next component, this is one of my very favorite parts. This is a concept that we talk about. I call this credit lines and cash flow, and how to use credit lines and cash flow to reduce your debt. So we all know that we talked about this, that the largest expense in life is right here, taxes. Taxes is your number one expense in life. Well, if we can reduce taxes by 2/3, that's awesome. Well, what's your second largest expense? And it's not what you think. People oftentimes think, well, it's, my second largest expense is my house. Well, maybe, but it's a particular part of your house where you get bit. Okay, and it's what it is that we need to work on is reducing the interest. All right, that's not going to work so well. I can't well, I'm going to need my other screen here, so we'll roll with it. So pretend you can read that and it says interest. Interest, this is where we get killed. Now, where do we pay interest? Let's look at the culprits here. We've got our house, our mortgage interest, we've got our car loans, we've got our student loans, anything that's a loan, anything with a fixed amount, a fixed interest rate over a period of time, you're going to be paying interest. Credit cards, for heaven's sakes, one of the biggest offenders. Well, this is where we totally get screwed on interest, and it costs us a fortune, but we don't even think about it because all of these, every single one of these are associated with a monthly payment. When this really came to my awareness, it was just this past winter. I was up at my aunt and uncle's house, and we went down to the local motorsport store, and we were looking at snowmobiles during the wintertime. And I went in, and I remember I looked at the sales ticket, and I don't remember the exact figures, but I remember what stuck out to me. Let's say that the snowmobile or the four-wheeler, whatever it was we were looking at, was like $25,000. Okay, they had that written on the tag. And that was in small print. But right here, they had something like this that said only $474 a month. And all of a sudden, people throw out the window that it's 25 grand because all they think of is monthly payments. Well, that's cool. That's the way we buy things, right? We buy everything on payments, and this is the way we've been conditioned. We live in 30-day cycles. Every 30 days, your rent or your mortgage is due. Every 30 days, you've got a car payment. Every 30 days, you've got a credit card. You got to pay your utilities. Everything's in these 30-day cycles, and we live on monthly payments. That's frustrating because we never take into consideration how much are we actually paying for something? What is that? We never look at that, okay? Well, we're going to switch over, and I'm going to show you in just a second. We're going to talk about using cash flow and credit lines and how to use them together because there's a difference between loans versus lines of credit, okay? A loan is going to have a fixed payment amount, a fixed term, and a fixed interest rate. Whereas a line of credit, it might be adjustable. It might be a fluctuating rate. Where all of this is amortized over time, and you're always going to have the same payment. Well, how many of you, if you have cash flow, take your extra cash flow and put it against your loan every month? Whether it's your car loan, your credit card loans, people don't do that. Why? Because that's a one-way door. If you put money in, right, the door shuts behind you and you can't get money back out unless you sell or refinance. Whereas a line of credit, you put money in and it's kind of like it's a revolving door. You ever been to those restaurants where you've got the revolving door? Pretend I'm looking at this from above and you're coming in and you just keep going around and around. Or if you've seen the movie Elf, that's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, you should go see it. And Will Ferrell is just like, ah, running around the door. You guys know the scene? Well, that's how your lines of credit work. Now, typically our loan amounts are going to be about 6%, depending on what it is. Anywhere, if it's a mortgage, it might be as low as 3.5% to 6% right now. Car loans, going to be typically 6% or whatever. Whereas lines of credit come in many different forms. One of the most common ones is a credit card, and it's typically got, 21%. How many of you would use a 21% line of credit to pay off a 6% loan? How many of you would do that? No, you're saying, no, that makes no sense, right? It makes no sense to use 21% money to pay down 6. Or does it? You see, this is when I realized that, again, I had another blind spot. I didn't know what I didn't know. So let's run some numbers and let's see if you guys have a difference of opinion here. Let's say that we have our mortgage, $200,000. $200,000, we just bought it, we're at a 6% loan rate. Now, I know some of you have rates lower than that. I know some of you have rates higher than that. It doesn't matter. But that's going to give you a payment amount of just principal and interest of $1,200.39 a month. Well, if you pay that $1,239 every single month for the duration of the loan, which is 30 years, look at this. Over here, you've paid $232,000. 232 grand in interest. That's not total. That's not just the 200 in principal and it was 32 grand in interest. No, 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 no. What this means, you paid for 2 and you only get to keep 1. How does this work? You see, what we don't know, what we're unaware of, is every time we make our payment. Okay, look at this. Your first payment, you paid $1,200, and that first payment is only paid down the loan $198.72. And the next month, you pay it again. And hey, congratulations, your pay down goes up by $1. You're at $199.72. And the next month, $1 again and $1 again. But the 5th month, this is so exciting. This is something to write home to mom about, because this 5th month, you decreased your loan balance by 101 pennies above the previous month. Guys, this is ludicrous. And people always argue with me and they say, Kendall, this doesn't make sense because I'm not going to keep my house for 30 years. I know, right? Like, that's the problem. When I started looking into this and learning about credit lines and cash flow, people are like, yeah, but I'm not going to keep my house 30 years. Well, I know. Let's do some math. Because over here, when we run these numbers, okay, we start thinking about, all right, people they're making a fixed income. They've got an income of, let's put this into your situation here. Let's say that your fixed income is $5,000. Now, is that gross or is that net? In this example, this is going to be your net income. Okay, so you're making $5,000 a month, and let's say your expenses are $3,000. All right, that's on top of your mortgage. So your total expenses are $4,200. So you've got cash flow of $800. Do you see that? Do you follow that? Or do I need to draw it out for you? Here, I'll draw it out for you anyway, because sometimes you're just more visual. So your income is $5,000 a month. Your mortgage is $1,200. Okay, so that leaves $3,800 left over. Your other expenses are $3 grand. So you subtract that out. You've got cash flow of $800. Okay, so that $800. How many of you are going to take this $800 and put it up here? Are you going to throw all $800 against your loan? Because you know that that's how you pay down your mortgage. You got to do additional payments against your loan. You know that's the fastest way. But how many of you are going to take this $800 and throw it against the house? Nobody does, right? Because what happens if we need that money? You see, I learned this experience when I paid off my car, the first car I ever financed. I paid it off early, and literally 2 months after I paid it off, it needed a new transmission. I had to go get a loan and borrow money to pay for the transmission. I'm like, man, this is messed up. You see, versus a credit line's a revolving door. If I have a credit card and I pay down $5,000 and I pay it down today, what's available to me to use again tomorrow? The $5,000. So it's a difference between lines and loans. Well, let's go back to this example. And let's say that you've got cash flow of $800. Now, what if we could use the bank's money? What if we could use the bank's money at 21%? How many of you would use 21% money to pay down 6? Nobody. Everyone says, no, that's crazy. I wouldn't do that. Or would you? Let's look at this. I wanted to look at this scenario and see how long is it going to take me to pay down just 10,000 bucks. That's it, 10 grand, a measly 5%. Now think of it. Most people, depending on how they finance it, if this was like an FHA loan, are there loans out there where 5% down can get you into a house? It can. So let's see, how long is it going to take me to pay down that $5,000? Or excuse me, that 5%, that $10,000. So we come over here, whoops, we come back here to the amortization schedule. And we just follow this along, guys. Look, we start with a $200,000 balance, look all the way over on the right, and I'm going to put this right underneath the red, right here. Look at that. All right. At 45 payments, we still owe $192.45. At 46 payments, we're $189,997. So 46 payments to pay down your loan, 10,000 bucks. Okay. Now let's do some math. I think you can see my calculator. I don't know. Is that showing right? Okay, cool. Now the loan amount is $1,200.39 times 46 payments is $55,000. $55,217.94. You get that? $55,217.94. That's your total payments. How much principal did you pay down? $10,000, meaning the bank earned interest of $45,217.94. Are you starting to see the problem here? This is where when people say, yeah, Kendall, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to refinance, right? People typically refinance every 5 to 7 years. So congratulations, you refinance and start over the term of the most expensive component of money, where everything is front loaded. This is when you're choosing to start to refinance. Well, I want to introduce you to a different way. What if you could use the bank's money to pay the bank? Would that be interesting? Would you be open to that? I mean, by show of hands, and I know I can't see you, but you can see me. By show of hands, how many of you would be interested? If you could use the bank's money to pay the bank. Okay, let me show you what I'm talking about. This is where credit lines and cash flow come into play. So with credit lines and cash flow, this is the way this works. We're going to use 21% interest. 21% interest, and we're going to go get a credit line for $10,000. I want to compare apples to apples. What's the same? How long is it going to take me to pay down? Now, if I use this credit line and do this over and over and over, and I learn a different way of using my cash flow, let me show you what would happen. Look up at the orange column. If we did this strategy over and over and over, using the bank's money at 21%, your mortgage would go from 30 years down to 12 and a half. 17 and a half years of payments gone because you learn about credit lines and cash flow. That's a savings of nearly $136,000 in interest. Holy cow, is that worth investing some time to learn how this stuff works? You better believe it is. Okay, well now look, this is our net income. This is $5,000 net. We've already paid taxes. Well, what if we stopped giving Uncle Sam all of our excess money and then expecting a tax return at the end of the year? What if we stopped doing that? What I mean is could you go in and adjust your W-4 or your W-9 or whatever the heck it is? We'll just call it a WD-40 because I never remember what it's called. Go adjust your WD-40. Okay, go adjust the dependents. Now, of course, guys, talk to your tax consultant on this. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just giving you recommendations of what some of my friends have done. They decided to take control of their future. Instead of giving all of that money to the government and then getting it back in the form of a tax refund, or a tax return, they decided to go increase their dependents, change their tax, and start bringing home more money. If the average person is getting $6,000 a year, okay, that's the savings of, if we were to divide that over 12, is that going to increase your income or is that going to decrease your expenses? And it's going to increase your income, okay? $6,000 divided by 12 is $500 a month. What would that do? What would that do in your case? Applied that cash flow differently, that's going to take it down another 3.5 years. You're now down to 9 years. Look at how much you're saving now, nearly $164,000. Okay. Now, what if we went and adjusted our expenses? What if we started paying off our cars? We take another $600 off of our bills. Ladies and gentlemen, now we're down to less than 7 years. Now, I know you're saying, well, Kendall, this is a hypothetical situation. Yeah, I know. But what if it wasn't? What if these were your numbers? Or what if we could run your numbers? What if you could plug your numbers into the calculator to see how quickly you could pay off your home? You see, when I learned about this, I started sharing it with everybody I knew, because this will change their life if they take action. If they just learn about it and say, oh, that's cool, it's not going to do anything. But if they learn it and apply it, it can absolutely change their world. Let me share an example. I shared this with my own brother. Now, my brother's brilliant, right? He really is. He's a surgeon. The dude is way smarter than I am. But when I shared this with him, the concept of credit lines and cash flow, he says, Kendall, if you could do this, everyone would already do it. I said, you're kidding, right? Like, you really don't believe that. He said, well, if you could do this, the banks would let us know. I don't think so. Did you see how much the banks are going to make when we do it their way? Almost 232 grand. So let's learn to do it a different way. He refinanced his home. He had 26 years left when he first started implementing this strategy. When he implemented it, he did some of he combined our introductory strategies along with the advanced strategies and took his loan from 26 years down to 3.7. 3.7 years from 26. He took 22 years off his mortgage payment. That's amazing. I shared it with my father-in-law, and I shared his strategies. And if he goes in and he adjusts a few things and puts some cash down on the property and still had access to it, he was able to get his house again down to less than 4 years. Well, that's pretty remarkable, right? Well, what about people that I'm not related to? What success are they having? Well, one of my friends here, her and her husband, they learned about this strategy, and they're a young couple. They bought a brand new house when they were 23 years old. They bought a house, and when they first started implementing the strategy, they were going to be able to pay it off in 7 years. Well, since they've gone out and continued their investing and learned everything we've talked about the cash flow quadrant, paying less in taxes, buying rental properties, doing fix and flip, they've increased their cash flow, because when you increase cash flow, that's what creates the change. You use the credit line as a tool, but you increase the cash flow to get the massive change on the interest savings. Well, when they started out, they were going to pay it off in about 7 years. Now, because of their increased cash flow from their rental properties, they're down to 2.9 years to pay off their house free and clear. By the time they're 30 years old, this house that they've just purchased will be paid off free and clear. Now, what if you're saying, yeah, but, and that's always such a challenging statement. Everybody always has the yeah, buts. Yeah, but you don't know my story. Yeah, but you don't know how hard my life is. No, I do. I've been there. I get it. Right? Life's hard. Sometimes your credit sucks. I get it. Sometimes you're saying, yeah, I don't have a mortgage. This doesn't apply to me. By show of hands, how many of you have debts you want to get rid of? It works. It absolutely works. It works if you allow it to. Anything that you have debts that you want to accelerate, using cash lines and credit lines and cash flow, you can accelerate it at a much more rapid pace. Now, this only works if it's going to work for you. So I'm going to encourage you to get back with the person who invited you to see this video. Have a conversation. See if they are willing to put your numbers into the calculator, into the spreadsheet. Let's see how we can get this to show up in your world, because if you do, what I can promise you is you'll be blown away. You'll say, oh my gosh, if even a fraction of that is possible, that's worth an investment of my time. So I look forward to seeing you guys on the next videos, and we'll talk to you soon.